Hey, Tuesday.
Every
Business
show starts the exact same way with me
pants.
giggling like a
Uh,
school child.
business pants. We're wearing our business pants.
I am wearing pants today, it's true.
Today we make the business news less sucky. We do it every day. Hey-o,
We
business
do,
pants.
we do. let's go to the agenda today.
All right. We got a light day, thank God. We're gonna talk about the domination of big tech.
Yeah,
We're also
that's it.
we're gonna tease tomorrow's show a little bit by talking about BlackRock's announcement.
Well, nothing's a bigger teaser than when BlackRock
I
says
know,
something.
I know. The Thinkster at it, and finally Matt's gonna make something. That's what Matt does.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a little something today. It is a lighter show than
Yeah,
normal. I feel like.
more of a chatty show maybe.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but let's start the chat.
Yep. Uh, Here's the big headline, Matt. You ready for it?
I am.
The five biggest stocks are dwarfing the rest of the stock market at an unprecedented level. Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Facebook. The group that we have named here, FAMGA,
So
make up
catchy.
make up 18% of the total market cap of the S&P 500, an unprecedented level of dominance.
Okay.
You want to talk already, or you want me to keep going?
No, keep going.
Here's why I'm not surprised. Big tech companies, I do the news every day here, right? I
You
cull
do.
through.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's kind of it overwhelms me, but it's probably close to 1,500 articles pulling out headlines. And I feel like, sorry to insert my feelings here, but I
Ugh,
feel
I
like
hate your feelings.
80% of all business news these days, and maybe it's because we live in a clickbait generation, 80% of all business news is tech related. It just is. And maybe that's because of the unprecedented level of dominance atop the stock market, but who knows? Number two, even at the Golden Globe Awards, I never thought I'd say that. Even at the Golden Globe Awards ceremony last week, big tech has replaced big baby diaper Trump and climate change as public enemy number one. Yes, that's right.
That is
That
true.
it's the new public enemy number one. And okay, and to kind of fill out the gaps here, I'm going to give you some examples of the obsession and concern with big tech. This is from today's headlines, okay? And then we can chat. And this is just a random assortment of headlines I pulled and this is like a taste of what we see every day now. The first one: Seattle's city council passed a bill that prevents companies like Amazon from spending big in local elections. Mike Bloomberg spent more than $825,000 on Facebook ads on Saturday alone.
Whoa.
Uh, Number three, a fresh crop of China's most promising tech companies are looking to set up shop in Africa in 2020. Yes, I'm looking at you, Jack Dorsey. And then the last headline I pulled was Instagram has been removing posts supporting General Soleimani, the Iranian military leader who was killed by an American strike. So, yeah,
Can we start on that last one?
let's go.
Can we not call? I feel it. Well, actually, let's start at the top. So, five companies effectively occupy roughly 20% of the S&P 500 by market cap. However, can we just stop saying the names Facebook and Google or Alphabet? Can we just say Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, and Larry Page represent, what is it? What I mean, they together represent, something like 6%, right?
Yeah, and you probably should add Uncle Jeff in there. I mean,
Yeah, Bezos owns 16% of Amazon. He's not going to get outvoted anytime soon. It just feels like market concentration isn't really like, what is market cap? Sort of like a fakish number now, isn't it? There's like 5
Yeah.
fundamental analysts. It's just index companies.
Well, all these stories going around how Tesla's market cap is like worth twice the size of GM and Ford and all that. Yeah, it is a little bit
It's kind of
of
make believe.
yeah, it's like a fetish number.
So, but what the real thing is like 3 dudes basically control 20% of, like 4 dudes control like 20% of the market.
So
Apple and Microsoft feel like different companies to me than the other
yeah,
3.
they're the adults in the room.
They do feel like that.
Wait, so is this why maybe this is why we're so concerned because we feel that it's not the companies we're worried about because as we pointed out, Sasha we quoted Sasha Baron Cohen in an amazing dig at Facebook, but his dig was directly at Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like when you talk about Instagram removing posts about, you know, the Iranian general,
Hmm.
that should just be Mark Zuckerberg removing posts about the Iranian
Yeah.
general. It's
Well,
not Instagram. It's just that guy.
yeah, and that's the thing too is that like I have to repeatedly, and this is no, I'm not saying anything about my daughter, but I have to repeatedly remind her that Instagram is Facebook. Like she just doesn't trigger with her every time. I have to remind her that they actually own it.
And then I got a question about downside, right? Like, so the market cap. So, so let's do a quick explainer on like market cap. Anyway, market cap is just like the total value of the publicly traded stock out there for each company, right? That you can like
Yeah,
so so it's supposed to represent the quote unquote value of the company, but there are other ways to value companies. Enterprise value, fundamental analysts like better, and publicly traded market capitalization just seems like a figment of reality. But if we're talking about these companies and market cap, is it bad that they're that concentrated? That it's like 5 of them make up 20% of the entire market?
well, it's certainly proportionally it seems off. I mean, is it bad? I don't know. I mean, it to me that I make in my head I go right to this idea of income inequality. I don't know why.
Well,
Am I wrong? Jump there?
well, no, maybe not. But I actually jumped to like Boeing represents like if Boeing sucking as much as they do represents potentially as much as 0.5% of US GDP, like the total output of the United States, because their supply chain is all through the US. They're a big, employer and manufacturer. There's all sorts of ripple effects. If Facebook goes down, right? Like if something really negative happens at Facebook, which is basically every day,
Yeah.
has that affected anyone in reality land? Except for the fact that they're like manipulating elections.
Well, what do you mean if it goes down?
I mean, what happens if Facebook fails? Like the reason why you care about
Yeah.
concentration is if one of these companies failed or dropped substantially, it would bring down the market. But if Facebook
Yeah.
failed, do we care?
It's no, because it's well, first of all, what function does Facebook serve? I'm not
I
really
think
sure about
that's the
that one.
point, right? Like
But
actually all
oh,
of them.
well, no, I guess you're right. I mean, these are easily replaceable things, right? Either widgets or platforms or whatever. I mean, there are other companies will just jump in and take those users away, right?
Like the one I'd be afraid of is Amazon. Because Amazon actually feels like it is so embedded like a tick in American
It is,
markets and
but
supply chains.
this is where this is where I feel the income inequality going on is that yeah, you're right, but I feel like most of that supply chain is probably making like shit wages. So
Yeah.
maybe it
Except
would be a yeah.
all right. So can we jump to Matt Makes, because
All right, so are we jumping over
I,
my T's?
let's end with the T's and let's
Okay, we'll end
jump
with the
to
T's.
let's do a weird
Go
jump
right to
right here.
Matt Mix. Let's
Let's
get
jump
there.
right to Matt Makes because I made some stuff here. Look.
Let me look.
So this question about market concentration is sort of what I wanted to tackle in Matt Makes anyway because of this story. And right now, We're talking about size concentration. It's basically, I mean, let's be honest. It's a dick war, right? Like which one of these has the largest market cap? Just insert the word penis there, and you're pretty much talking about what we're talking about. So Apple is the
Yes,
largest.
I feel uncomfortable with that analogy, but I'll let you. I don't. Maybe because I was, I am who I am. I don't quite understand you.
Oh, well, neither do my kids. So, but there
And
are
by the
other
way, can I just
ways.
say for the three viewers, I know three of you watch this show, and we love you, and I hope you're Finnish because I love to Finnish. I love everyone from
And
Finland.
South Korea, who we've got a
Can I just
viewer every day
yeah?
from South Korea.
Can I just say that you did one thing in this chart that I always hate is that you kind of it's that like number mixing thing where the bottom number is represented in millions,
Mm-hmm. So you got to do
but
the math.
yeah, I can't stand that. Why can't we go? Why can't we think about this? All right, keep going.
So Apple is the largest company in the world, right? And
You want me to
Microsoft.
applaud?
They just trade. But
Yeah,
what if we look at like concentration in a different way? Okay, so how about the
fine.
largest companies that are fake public companies? Now, this actually to me is
Wait, define fake
so
public.
fake public is a company where they have a dominant shareholder or a shareholder who owns all the votes. So Facebook is a fake public company because you can go out and buy that stock, but you cannot actually vote for a board member in any meaningful way because Mark Zuckerberg owns more than
Controls the vote.
50% of the total vote.
Yeah, I
He,
think it's 60%. Yeah, it's his company, it's his vote, it's his game.
so that's how that it's about control, like who can actually controls the direction of the company. Alphabet, which is Google, also fake public because
Okay.
Sergey Brin and Larry Page own more than 50% of the
Yeah,
vote at
right.
Alphabet. Okay. So, two of the largest companies in the world that we're talking about being afraid of because of the concentration are fake public companies.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
not they're not real. So, when you look at fake public companies, actually there's if you just look at who's the largest fake public companies, Facebook and Alphabet and Facebook are 1 and 2, and then
Mm-hmm.
Walmart is number 3, and then it drops off pretty substantially. But there's a lot of fake publicness.
Estee Lauder, really? That's the fourth
Yeah,
biggest.
that's number 4. T-Mobile is number 5.
This surprises me. Okay, so again, I it goes back to my original premise, which is I wonder if the fear is based on this fact alone, is that they don't sense that these corporations act like typical corporations. They're acting like dictatorships.
They are actually dictatorships for at least Alphabet and Facebook, which makes me think like, well, what should we be afraid of, right? Because the fact that they're highly concentrated, if you're an investor, it means that if they go down, they're correlated because they're all kind of tech, and if their market price drops, then that wipes out portfolios fast because a lot of portfolios are just they hold what the market holds, right? But two of these massive companies, the real reason to be afraid is you have no control. They're fake public, but also I would think about it so we can. I would axe them entirely from market concentration because they're not real. They're not actually. You don't own anything. You own just the figment of your imagination. The way I
Okay.
might actually think about them is like through other lenses. For instance, when you look at controversies, like how basically a count of how many news stories are really shitty about them or shitty things they do, like negative things that these companies do,
Hmm.
behaviors. Alphabet and Amazon are two of actually the most controversial companies
Yeah,
in the entire world.
yeah. There's a little bit of bias in these numbers, but yeah,
Sure, there's some bias in these numbers.
because I'm
Um,
guessing like the staff of CNBC, there's probably 20% of all reporters are covering just Google alone. That's what it feels like.
but if you get a little bit further, right,
Mm,
think about
yep,
employees, right?
I'm thinking about them. Yeah,
So Walmart is the largest. If you talk about employee concentration, publicly
yeah.
traded companies by employee concentration, Walmart is the biggest. Walmart shows up a bunch of times here. I don't
Wait, so
know.
Walmart represents? I think you mentioned this before, but and this is again surprising me, which is showing how dim-witted I am. But Walmart represents 6% of total U.S. workforce. Is that true?
Publicly traded company workforce.
6%?
Yes.
That's huge.
2.2 million employees at Walmart.
Wow.
The next closest, they dwarfs almost everybody. Walmart is
That's
a massive, massive employer. Now, let me ask you something. Now, let's go
yeah.
backwards very, very quickly because Walmart's not in the conversation when you're talking about how concentrated the market is in big tech. But
Right.
Walmart is a fake public company. Their market cap is somewhere in the $300 billion range. So they're a massive company. They are a fake public company because the Waltons own them through the family
Hmm.
trust. You don't have any rights effectively there. They are one of the most controversial companies in the entire country. Um,
Yeah.
in fact, second only to Ford, if I'm using MSCI ESG data.
Ford and Chick-fil-A. So much fact, and I don't even know why, if I could pinpoint why, but we don't actually. I don't think we never ever shop at Walmart ever.
Well, that's too bad because
I
they
don't
are
even know, but I
so
don't even
large
know
and
why.
powerful.
I don't even know why. It's because of this though. It's because of the gluttonous amount of controversies that we read about them.
I just feel like and then when you add on top of that, they are number one in terms of the publicly traded companies who employ people in the US.
Hmm.
Should we really be afraid of Facebook, who's a fake public company who has limited supply chain? Their problem is like they are social manipulators. They can manipulate minds and
That sounds
elections.
scary.
That sounds scary, sure,
Jeez.
but if Facebook
Oh, that's
disappeared,
all.
if they
Yeah.
disappeared from the planet, the effect is actually fairly limited potentially versus
Yeah.
Walmart.
Okay, but you're swallowing the lead there. I think what you backtrack to what you just said, what their Facebook is doing. I mean, if that's true, then there's a reason to fear them, right? I
So
mean,
tell me, well, let's do the fear concentration index between you and me. Walmart versus Facebook. Who are you more afraid of? If they disappeared from the publicly traded market, they basically crashed to zero.
the question is, what am I afraid of?
Which
Like
one?
the
If
effects on the U.S.
Facebook, the
economy.
price of their stock went to zero, or Walmart, the price of their stock went to zero, which one matters more to you?
Like, in which case would I be happier? Is that what you're asking? That's a good question. I mean, that's a hard one to. The Facebook, I think, would make the most would create the most amount of storylines for us. So I fear that one the least.
I do too. I think if Walmart crashed to zero, you're talking about millions of employees who are out of jobs and no control as a shareholder at
Yeah,
all.
but the flip side of that is that every, like, 4 out of 5 towns in my beloved state of Maine, maybe the stores downtown will start to open up again.
Not possible, except that Amazon still exists.
Amazon, right? They'll step in. Sorry.
So that's a large part of the Matt makes today. The other parts I wanted to talk about were really just the top five incestuous corporate gene pools.
Oh, okay. You're jumping off topic, but that's okay. I like it.
And I just want to mention it, which Dell is
Yeah.
the number one company for having board members that sit on so many other boards that it's just basically incest.
Well, Dell is a good maybe company to use here because Dell essentially is a private company. They keep going from private to public to private to public, and they're dominated by Michael Dell, and so they're a good example of fake public.
They are. And then last but not least, my top three favorite board members are just the Caterpillar three, in Dennis
You
Muhlenberg,
just had to
Susan
mention
Schwab,
that.
and Dave Calhoun. If
Wow.
any chance I can mention them, I will.
And 2 out of 3 of those balding, pasty, waspy people are either the former or current CEOs of Boeing. What a weird coincidence, right? That's a coincidence, right? There's no correlation there. So when we're writing our articles in the mainstream business news, we shouldn't make those connections, right? Because they don't really exist, right? Is that
They're
what
Boeing is definitely not fake public. So that was Matt Makes. So let's we can jump back into the
all right.
concentration conversation. But I honestly I think my takeaway here is a bit of so what, and a bit of, if you're going to be afraid of something, like Amazon is the one that seems like the most important. And if you're going to be afraid,
Well,
I'd be afraid of other companies.
I was going to ask you, do you at our former job, did we collect stats on the like as far as the supply chain goes of a company like Amazon? Do we know how many employees are affected by their entire
Downstream.
supply chain? Yeah, do we know? Do we have those numbers?
No, that data is not impossible,
Hard
but
to-
it's largely elusive. It's really
So,
difficult.
so maybe in this next generation of stakeholder data, we should be creating that,
Ooh, I
right?
love it. Look at
Listen,
you.
MSCI, there's a tidbit for you.
Or
All right, let
Sustainalytics or
any of you,
ISS, any of you do something.
do. Okay, I'm gonna just tease tomorrow's show, and then we're done. I like it. See that the harp works there, right? It kind of works as a forward
Yeah,
tease.
just for anybody listening, we were briefly dry running some other sound effects that included car crashes, explosions,
Do you want to play a
robots.
few?
I mean, we can. Okay, so let me know. So let's do some feedback. Go to freefloatmedia.com or at Matt Mascardi, at Damion Ross, at freefloatmedia. How does this sound effect work for you?
Do it again. Okay, yeah, that's depressing.
Is it
Do a
more
couple
depressing than?
Oh, jeez. This is coming from Matt's mind, by the way, not mine.
This is not my mind. This is our art department coming up with. But there's also musical interludes. Like, can you imagine transitioning like so?
93.7 The Wolf. Yeah, I don't know about that one. That one, like a 1990s.
Why don't we see what before we this goes totally off the rails? What?
Yeah. One more.
All right,
Take your
one more. There. How about this incredibly loud future robot here?
I mean, for me, that's the winner. I mean, that I asked for a harp replacement for 2020. That's appropriate for the new decade. I think that's a 21st century harp.
I think we should just make it a loop of us going Boeing, 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 Boeing.
Well, that's going to be our year anyway because Boeing's not going to quit, and we're not going to quit it. All right, so I'm going to tease tomorrow's show. Every Wednesday, we've been trying to go deep into our industry, inside the pants, as we call it, where we look at all things sustainable finance. Since we're trying not to say the acronym anymore,
I like that. Yeah, stakeholder finance.
Anyway, believe it or not, the big story of the day on mainstream business news is an ESG story. It's a sustainable finance story. It is about BlackRock and BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, which is a great CEO name. And he is warning that the financial risks of climate change are bigger than any crisis he's experienced in his career on Wall Street, promising that BlackRock will put sustainability at the center of our investment approach. And so why is this important, Matt? Because BlackRock has nearly $7 trillion in assets under management to play around with. $7 trillion. So I'm going to leave you with this, Matt. And this is something we'll talk about tomorrow. Is this the business roundtable part 2? Like, is this sort of nonsense, BS, stakeholder love crap? I mean, is Fink... is Fink playing a little game with us, or does he actually care?
Wow, that was sort of a deep end. Do you want me to answer now or save it?
Whatever you want. That's all I got for you. That's the tease for tomorrow's show.
Here's what I'd say.
Yeah.
I'd say it's not. This is a massive pivot, and in both a good way and a hidden disingenuous way. That's what I would say.
To me, what I thought about was like Walmart selling like organic almond milk, right? It gives two shit about organic anything the market wants to buy organic almond milk. That's how I saw it.
I think you might not be wrong. That's what I think.
All right, good.
It's
Brief.
a weird show today.
Yeah, no, it's good. We'll talk tomorrow about we'll go inside the pants.
Yeah, let's get deep in the pants tomorrow. That's where I like to live.
Oh, man,
All right, Damian. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh, wait.
Yep.
I got an outro.
Yep.
That's Damian
Yeah.
Rallis. I'm Matt Miscardi. We are Free Float Media. This was Business Pants. Thanks to our team, Courtney Rowe, Courtney Cook, Dan Rogachnig, art by John Walsh, music by Todd Hovanek. These are amazing people. They do amazing work, and we want to feed them. So continue, please, to subscribe, rate us. Let us know what you think. If you've got questions, send them to us. We want the mailbag. And if you are advertising for your massive ESG or businessy thing, we wear business pants. We can make you sound good, so let us know. We will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, Damian.